Donegal's the heartland of tweed and wool. They have been made in the homes of our ancestors for generations. The colours and the patterns of our tweed and woolen products are born of our landscape. They reflect the sky, the land, and the sea. They are an authentic part of who we are. When you own a piece of Donegal tweed or a woolen product, you are reaching back to the time-honoured traditions of our ancestors. Although the art of weaving reaches as far back as 1600 BC in Ireland, the tweed industry and the woolen industry in Donegal owes its origins to the late 1800s and early 1900s, and essentially involves from two business models. One being private enterprises that saw an opportunity to expand their business. Initially, many of them were involved in groceries. The other business model was more community-like, cooperative-like enterprise. These provide the foundation for the dynamic and diverse range of companies working in the Donegal textile sector today.
My name is Eddie Doherty, and I do hand weaving tweed, Donegal tweed. I have been working since 1956. It was all hand weaving in this town at that time. It was every second family was involved in hand weaving. A lot of people ask me who learned you, but you didn't. You just picked it up from looking at others doing it, and that's the way you get it. I started out on my own then. Making throws. The shopkeeper in the town asked me to make throws for him when I was still in this factory. I had another loom at home, and we used to make the throws for him and that kind of stuff. And that's what started me. From 1959 I've been making this stuff here for myself. And I've wove then for McGee's then for years. It was Malloy's was what first. And we wove then for McGee's for years and years. 2 doors up there you had the pub, and I had the pub. And the bar, Doherty's bar, and I wouldn't have had this place at that time. This was where you're standing now was a butcher shop. Way back in the 50s. I had a tweed shop at the back of the pub as well, so you could get the drink and the tweed and everything else in it. I got more busier then. The son then took over the pub about 20 odd years ago, and I was busier at the tweed then. But it expanded well, and we do a lot of a good bit on the website now as well. Visitors coming into here all want to see the hand weaving because it's ancient, like, as well as anything else, and that's just one of the reasons.
My name is Patrick Temple. I'm CEO of McGee Weaving. We're based here in Donegal town. McGee's was founded in 1866, right here where we're standing just on the diamond in Donegal town. The business model has really been the same throughout the years. So we make fabric, tailored and casual garments from the very beginning in 1866. Today it's tailoring and casual, with Donegal tweed at the heart of all of the collections. Weaving of tweed in the region of Donegal is a key attribute. It is a genuine article. It's champagne for the French, it's Donegal tweed for us. Donegal tweed is synopsis with this region, County Donegal, developed a couple of hundred years ago. It as a woolen fabric. Originally the fleck would have been an impurity. The impurity today is very much a fashion and design driven positive. It's a unique identity that defines Donegal tweed when you have the colourful fleck woven into the yarn in a twill or plain weave. So you can see the plain weave here in brown and the twill here in the grey and charcoal. These fabrics within the region of Donegal can be power woven or hand woven. There's a huge amount of skill in both. The setup of the loom, the dealing with natural fibres with their different tensions, with their different colour and dye characteristics, takes a lot of skill, knowledge which is developed in this region over generations, and it's a testimony to both the weavers and the people involved within the industry, maintaining this skill and heritage.
I'm Tristan Donaghy, and this is a small business, family-run business. My wife Anne and I run the business now. It started in 1979 under my father's management. At the time, the idea was to start something to try and preserve the tradition of the hand weaving, which had almost died out, as the original mill that was here hand weaving had at that stage switched to mechanical weaving. We now have a good little business with a solid base. We continue to hand weave everything that we make here. I often say that it's my aim to make a Studio Donegal the hallmark of Irish hand-woven tweed. What's special about what we're doing is that with the hand weaving we can do work in very small volumes, so we can work a very, very wide range of colour and pattern. Some of my design ideas come from things like science, like my idea of what I think the theory of relativity, a black hole, looks like. And so we've produced a blanket that represents what we think a black hole might look like. Hopefully I'll never get close enough to a black hole to actually discover it. But, you know, who knows? If that happens, well, so be it, you know, c'est la vie. And not only are we hand weaving all our tweed, we're also making all our garments, which gives us another little wow, because so many garments these days are made abroad, and so it's really actually special to get somebody who's able to make a garment, and so a customer comes in, they try something on, and they're asking, oh yeah, can we have it in this colour or in that colour? And you're saying yes, not a problem. And it also is very, very nice to be able to say this is made here, not just designed here. This really is the real thing. And again, that visitors are able to go up and talk to the people involved. And you know, we are a team. I often say that people work with me, not for me. We are a team of equals, and people come down, you know, wanting to buy something because they've actually seen it being made. So that's really important.
My name's Kieran Malloy and I own Malloy & Sons Weaving Limited with my father Sean, and we're a 6th generation weaving company specialising in authentic Donegal tweed based in Ardán on the southwest coast of Donegal. I'm the 6th generation of the family on the one site that's a weaver. The first 2 generations would have been hand weavers just supplying the local area, and then my great-grandfather and great-granduncle would have started exporting Donegal tweed in the early 20s, and they would have had a showroom on 5th Avenue in New York and a warehouse in the meatpacking district, and over and back to New York 3 or 4 times a year, sort of similar to what I do now, but 100 years ago. Myself and Dad set up Malloy & Sons in 2011, and now we're focusing on our Donegal tweeds and our blankets and selling to Japan, Korea, US, Italy, UK, Germany, France. It's mostly where we're selling to. So this is the warping process. So it makes the vertical part of the fabric. And here we have a warp set up for some of our diamond weave blankets. So there's a lot of colors going on. And you can see all the yarn here. It comes through a reed, and it is what separates each thread. And then it goes through another reed that sets your threads per inch. And then it rotates and wraps the warp yarns around the drum. This beam gets lifted up in, and the yarn gets transferred from the warper onto the beam, which is basically like a big spool. And then this beam gets transferred into the back of the loom. And then you have your warp set up and you can start to weave once it's all set up. Here you have your warp yarns. So on here it's just a solid grey that we're doing, but if it's like a more colourful blanket, there'll be different colours here on the creel. Basically what the loom is doing is creating the fabric. So it's interlacing the warp and the weft. So I'll put it going now. What's happening here is the weft is coming in. This is a rapier, which is like a shuttle. The rapier comes in, it picks up the yarn. There's another rapier coming from the other side. They meet in the middle. This one opens up, catches onto the yarn here. It's pulled out to the side. The shafts change and the reed pushes the yarn into place. And that's what's happening. The weaving process just speeded up when it's going. So after the fabric's woven, it's brought in here to get inspected and mended to fix any problems. With Claire here, my aunt, and she checks the fabric for broken threads or knots, and they all have to be fixed. So then after the fabric's inspected and mended, we send it for finishing, where it's washed and pressed, and that's your finished fabric. So then we bring it over to our inspection machine, where then we are checking the fabric for any flaws or dirt or stains or anything like that, just to make sure that it's perfect before it goes out to the customer.
We've been here since 1950. My dad started in this actual building here with 2 hand looms, and he went to Textile College in Shields during the winter, and then in the summer he brought 2 experienced hand weavers over from Ardán. So during the 50s that slowly built up, and in the late 50s things were progressing nicely. There was a team of around 20 people here, so they decided to build what is the existing factory across the road there now. We live here on the edge of the Atlantic, on the Wild Atlantic Way. There's nature and natural beauty all around us. Sometimes it's rugged, wild natural beauty, but with the heather, the ocean, the mountains, occasionally we see some sunshine, and when you're driving to work in the morning you see all these things. A lot of inspiration comes from that.
So one of the keys today for weaving in this part of the world is design, colour and texture of fabrics. Going right back, we maintain our archive records going right back to the 60s and before, and this is key inspiration from the past but for the present. Fashion always repeats itself, but it never repeats itself in exactly the same way as it did historically. Today's fibres are much softer. When we go back to our archives from the 1960s, there was a lot more Irish wool than there is today. These were coarser fabrics, designed for durability, keeping the weather out, and the occupant warm. In McGee's we have been using wools from the Southern Hemisphere alongside Irish wools throughout our recent history. Colour is a key thing, balanced within the fabric. It's a fine line between having too much and too little colour. With natural fibres, the batches of wool vary from sheep to sheep, from yarn to yarn, and it is an art to make the colour balances and colour coordinate correctly. We weave a multitude of different colours where in one warp, and we balance different wefts across it between trues and untrues, which often creates some inspiring surprises, as well as what the designers had initially planned in the blanket layout. We do our best to keep collections going back for a number of seasons, which is again key source of inspiration. We find with a lot of key fashion companies, the depth of archives and design content is very inspiring for them.
We get quite a few people coming here in summertime, and This year they were shooting a movie locally, so we had Pierce Brosnan here in March. When we're talking to people like that, we realise what they really appreciate about Donegal Tweed is the authenticity of the product. That feedback, when we're sitting doing or having our design meetings, we then think, right, what was the feedback? What are people thinking? What are people looking for? So we then, that all loops back into the design process to try and build in more authenticity. And people know that when we're weaving something that there's a lot of love and passion by everybody in the whole mill here. Goes into all of that to make it happen and really make it something unique and different. We only weave natural fibres here, so there are no nasty polyesters or any of the other less than wonderful fibres. So everything's natural. Because it's natural, it means there are no real chemicals being used. Later in life, the products are all wool, alpaca, linen, cashmere are all biodegradable. We have very, very little waste here, and at the moment we're doing a project to use our waste fibres to become cushion filling. Next year our cushion pads will have wool fibres rather than feathers.
There are many wonderful attributes of Donegal Tweed. Wool is very much at the top amongst the more organic and environmentally friendly fibres.
Recently we've gotten support from the local enterprise office for our Donegal Tweed Association to help us progress that forward, and also ourselves, Molloy & Sons, that we have gotten support from the Leo. They've been really helpful to help us buy some new machinery to expand our blanket and scarf range. Recently we set up the Donegal Tweed Association. That's between ourselves, McGee, McNutt's, Studio, Eddie Doherty, and we're promoting Donegal Tweed with the hope that in the next couple of years we'll get protected geographical indication from the EU. So in the same way that champagne can only be produced in the Champagne region of France, Donegal Tweed will only be able to be produced in County Donegal.
It's about preserving tradition and craft, and if we lose part of our tradition or craft, it's part of our heritage, and we're so much less for it. So it's very important to try and keep these traditions, and keep our heritage alive.
Today, Donegal Tweed is still real life history, functioning and operating and charting a wonderful and colourful path into the future.